Chapter 17, Mrs. Donnelly. I left 4 messages for Frank Casigi before he finally called me back. He was apologetic. Sorry, Flora, you know I'm chairing the principal's conference this year, and it's just details. Sorry to bother you when you're so busy. I thought I'd better check up on Cap Anderson. Has he been fitting in any better? Fitting into what? He asked. The age of Aquarius? I felt my heart sink. That bad, huh? Actually, not really. I had the boy pegged as a train wreck, but considering how odd he is and how sheltered his life has been, things could be a lot worse. He has friends? I asked hopefully. Not friends exactly, more like followers. Followers? Ever since that stunt with the school bus, the kids just flocked to him. He put together a tie-dyeing clinic with the art teacher. You wouldn't believe the turnout. It was, he chuckled, what do they call big events back in the 60s? A happening? I supplied automatically. Right. And that's the least of it. He picks up a guitar in the music room and strums a few old Beatles tunes. Pretty soon he's got 20 people in there singing along. He's running some kind of martial arts class on the front lawn. He's got more kids working on the Halloween dance than will probably come that night. He's even got a few mediators. If I didn't know the kid's history, I'd probably have the police making sure he wasn't setting up a cult. It triggered an explosion of images from my own childhood at Garland. Cult was exactly the word for it, with Rain as its philosopher/guru. Still, the news makes me breathe easier. That's a load off my mind. When I found out they made him 8th grade president, well, Sophie filled me in on what that might mean. I've heard those rumors too, he admitted. It certainly hasn't gone smoothly for the last few in that office. But we don't want to be the only middle school in America with no student government. So we threw the dice, and this time we lucked out. Thank heaven. But maybe I should have realized that Cap was holding his own in his new life. He was still a fish out of water, but he didn't seem to be quite so thrown by every little thing as he had been when I first brought him home. One major clue is the fact that he was taking genuine interest in that school. As a social worker, I kept current yearbooks from all the buildings in my district. Not only was Cap borrowing the Claveridge books, but he was spending hours studying them. Imagine a boy who had never even had a single classmate now wanting to know more than 1,000 of them. I found it heartwarming. Things were even thawing slightly between Cap and my daughter. Mind you, that had more to do with a change in Sophie than a change in Cap. She was in a better state of mind because her father had finally remembered to send back her extremely belated birthday present, duly engraved. Truth be told, I'd never expected to see it again, and I don't think Sophie had either. So imagine my surprise when she opened a padded mailer with no return address and pulled out that silver bangle. There was no card, not even a scribbled note. The only thing that spoke for this gift was the engraving on the inside of it. All you need is love. To be honest, the inscription threw me a little. It certainly didn't sound like the Bill Donnelly I used to be married to. His idea of sentimentality was the presentation of the Lombardi Trophy at the end of the Super Bowl. But I guess he could still surprise me. He certainly got this one right. Sophie was thrilled. It almost made up for the fact that he had walked out of her life yet again. Even with the new, kinder, gentler Sophie, Cap was still a whole lot nicer to her than she was to him. He probably had a crush on her. An attractive high school girl had to look good to an 8th grader, especially one who has barely laid eyes on a female who wasn't his grandmother. I couldn't prove that, of course, but one day I came home from work and the two of them were on the couch in front of Trigonometry and Tears, that awful teen soap opera geared to the interest level of chimpanzees and various species of plant life. A steamy makeout scene was taking place on the screen. Sophie was watching it intently, and more to the point, Cap was watching Sophie. He was a difficult one to read, but I believed he was trying to work up the guts to lean over and put his arm around her. So I slammed my briefcase down on the kitchen counter and said the first thing I could think of. Who's up for a nice tall glass of lemonade? Mother, Sophie exclaimed in exasperation. What century is this? I told myself I was protecting my daughter, but the truth is I was protecting Cap from what Sophie would have done to him if he'd made a move on her. The pain of my own adjustment from Garland was decades in the past, but it felt like yesterday when I watched this poor boy. I took Frank Casigi at his word when he said Cap was doing well, but I knew I wouldn't sleep at night until he was once again with Rain, hobbling back towards the 60s as fast as her pinned-up hip would carry them.